Hello, welcome everyone to this month's webinar. I am Kati Casto. I'm the English Language Specialist here with RELO Andes, and I'm so excited to be with you today. Thanks for joining. The topic of today's webinar is multilingual learners as global citizens. I'm so excited for the topic today. Good afternoon. We'll be talking all about what it means to be a global citizen as a teacher of English, as a student of learning English, as multilingual learners in general. I recognize that most of you who are joining live are somehow connected to the U.S. Department of State community, wherever you are. Perhaps you're a teacher of English, and I imagine you're a multilingual person as well. You might speak 2 languages or more. So today we'll talk about what it means to be a global citizen as someone who's multilingual. If you'll take a minute to introduce yourself in the comments, where are you joining from? Where in the world are you? Is it morning or afternoon or evening or the middle of the night where you are? I know some of you join late at night. Good evening. I love to see where you're joining from. I'm joining from Seattle, Washington, and it's a chilly day up here today. We're heading into fall. I'll remind you that these webinars happen on the third Thursday of every month, so make sure that you're following RELO Andes on Facebook to get alerted, not just for webinars, but for other great things that come out from the U.S. Embassy in Lima. Welcome. Happy to have you. Oh my goodness, 8 p.m. Glad you're joining so late into the evening. We're going to start this webinar with a little look into the status of English learners worldwide. This stat is from the British Council, and they estimate there are about 1.5 billion English learners worldwide currently. Good afternoon. Welcome. This image that they also provide with that stat shows many places where English is taught from birth. Many young babies learn English, right? Perhaps as their primary language or alongside another language in many of these countries listed here. There we go. But I'm curious, at what age did you begin learning English? When did you start your English learning journey? Did you start as a very young baby? Maybe you had bilingual or multilingual parents who helped, or multilingual teachers. Maybe you joined or you started learning English later in life. I see 19 in the comments. So jump in the comments and let me know, at what age did you begin learning English? At age 6. Perhaps. I know it varies from country to country and even within countries, from different school systems or even individual schools where multiple languages are taught. In many countries worldwide, English is taught as a second or third or additional language. For me, I was taught English at birth. My parents are English speakers. They helped in my English language development as a little toddler. But I picked up my second language. I speak Spanish as well, and I started learning Spanish in 7th or 8th grade in middle school. So maybe age 12 or 13. Yeah, same for me. About age 12, I picked up my second language. I see lots of different ages in the comments. It's interesting to see when you started learning English, and also I'd be curious to know more about you. Are you an English teacher now? Did you start learning English at 18 and now you teach it? What an amazing accomplishment. So let's start with what is a global citizen? All of us here in this webinar and in the comments have some language level of English and perhaps another language. So when we talk about global citizens, a global citizen is someone who identifies with being part of an emerging world community and whose actions contribute to building the community's values and practices. So often I connect the English learning community with the global citizen community because we're part of this worldwide community. We're part of the 1.5 billion or perhaps more people who learn English worldwide as their first or second or other language that they've added. So, as part of this community, we contribute to building the community's values and practices. The US Department of State, the embassies worldwide, especially the Educational and Cultural Affairs Unit, they're really a big piece of this community and establishing some of those community values. So the more that we engage together as English learners and teachers, we contribute to the building of our community globally. This webinar, I'm just scrolling back, seeing all of you joining from all over different parts of the globe: Morocco, Peru, Algeria, Argentina, Baltimore. It's clear that we have this global community of English learners, even right here through our RELO Andes webinars, right? So there's a growing global identity that we share as part of being global citizens, especially multilingual English learners. And this growing global identity is made possible by many different forces. One, the internet. Here we are joining from all over the world in community together for this webinar, thanks to the glories of the internet. We're able to be a part of this global community by sharing information online. Communications also make this identity possible because we all share the common language of English, regardless of the other languages that we speak. We can engage and communicate with each other. Transportation technologies also add to this global identity, especially if you're able to travel, visit other places. Participation in a global economy, oftentimes even bigger than us as individuals. There are worldwide environmental factors that contribute to our global identity as well. We all live on the same planet. We're all contributing to those worldwide environmental factors. So it's something that joins us together as part of our global identity. And I might argue that at the center of this global citizenship is empathy, is our ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and understand their perspective or appreciate their perspective. So, all of these factors contribute to how we understand ourselves as part of this global community, the community of multilingual learners across the world. I love to share this quote from Ron Israel. He says, "Global citizens are not abandoning their other identities, such as allegiances to your countries or ethnicities or political beliefs. These traditional identities give meaning to our lives and will continue to help shape who we are." So, what that means to me is that even though I'm a global citizen, a part of this global community as an English learner or a multilingual learner, that doesn't mean that I have to abandon or forget about the other identities that I share. The intersections of my identity as an individual are still present and important, and I'm part of this global citizenship. So I'm going to delineate some of the values of global citizens that show up in our community as multilingual learners. One is the value of human rights, believing that humans have rights that are um, awarded them regardless of who they are or where they're from. Another value often of the global citizens is environmental protection, caring about the globe where we live. Gender equality is a value of global citizenship, recognizing that regardless of gender identity, all people should have access to gender equality. Cultural diversity is a value of global citizens. We believe that diversity is a beautiful and important piece of our experience in the world, and especially as teachers. Sustainable economic growth is a value of global citizens. So, thinking bigger, beyond. As educators, this is important to us because we're growing new generations of thinkers and learners. Humanitarian assistance is the last value that I'd like to point out here because it leads us into this idea of what do we do because we're a part of this global community. When I think about global citizenship and all of those values, I think globally in order to act locally. So for me, acting locally is taking the steps to apply my understanding of global citizenship to where I live, where I work, who I'm in community with day to day. So the more that I think and understand my role in the global community, the better I can act locally where I am. So I'm going to give you some tips for ways to act locally, ways that you can engage as educators and learners in your local communities. The first thing, especially as teachers, that we can do to act locally while we're thinking globally is to teach diversity. It's important to introduce yourself and your students to diverse cultures, diverse perspectives, and diverse beliefs. This is one way that we can welcome our students into an understanding of a global community. That no matter where our students are from or the identities that they hold, there are other people, diverse, different people out there to be understood and celebrated. Teaching diversity is good vibes. I see that in the comments. That's right. Okay, here's tip number 2. Grow your individual awareness. As a leader, oh, I see, Henry, your comment. Belonging to a profession as being a teacher means identity as well. Teachers could become global citizens too. Absolutely. We are global citizens as teachers. That gets right to this tip. Growing your awareness is so important for us as teachers to do first for ourselves. It's being self aware, growing our understanding of our own identity and our own environment. So consider how the choices that you make affect yourself, your community, your country, and the globe. Yes, Nadia, it enhances acceptance and respect for others. Absolutely. Growing your awareness as a teacher is a really fundamental step, especially if you're going to be teaching diversity, to be engaging in that understanding and growth, being self reflective as a teacher, as an education practitioner, is really fundamental to being able to act locally where you're at. Okay, so that's tip number 2, grow your awareness. Number 1 was teach diversity. Here's tip number 3 for how to think globally but act locally. Check your information sources. Evaluate the validity of the information that you read, the validity of the information that you watch. That might mean thinking about who created this information, who made this video, when did they make it, and for what purpose. I included this image on the screen that's a little silly because it says, "Don't trust every quote you read on the internet," said by Abraham Lincoln. Well, we know that Abraham Lincoln could not have said this quote because he did not live in a time of the internet. So it's a little silly, but the reality is there are things out there in the internet that are not from valid sources or that are from biased sources. So it's important to check your information sources. Consider, where am I getting this information and who am I getting it from? By checking our information sources, we become more informed and more critical thinkers. We're able to guide our students through that critical thinking as well. When we check our information sources and make sure that we're gathering our information from reputable quality sources. Okay, so that's number 3, quote or tip number 3, check your information sources. Here's tip number 4. As you're engaging and teaching diversity, understanding yourself, checking your sources, tip 4 is to engage in conversation. Educate yourself on varying opinions. Use evidence to support your opinion or support your stance. And then engage in intelligent discourse or in conversation with others who are also educating themselves about global issues. Respectful conversation can be really helpful to understanding varying perspectives and to increase our empathy. And increasing empathy helps us to be better teachers and better learners as well. So, as you're thinking about growing your awareness, understanding your role as part of this global community as a multilingual person, engage in some conversation with others, with colleagues, with students. Now, finally, my final tip for you is to make a difference in your local community. Multilingual global citizens are informed, we have self awareness, and we take action. We do things to improve the global community. What you do to make a difference in your community might be different than what someone else does in your same community. All of us in this webinar who are educators, we make a difference every day that we show up for our students and contribute to the learning environment where they feel safe to engage in that learning process. And there are even other ways outside of our jobs as teachers that we can make a difference in our communities. It might be related to some of the values that I outlined earlier. Maybe you're especially passionate about gender equality and you'd like to make a difference in your community by educating others. Maybe you're especially passionate about the environment, environmental issues, and you can make a difference by volunteering in your local community to plant trees or clean up trash in parks or whatever that might look like for your community. We first all make a difference in our students and as a consequence in our communities too. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. There are lots of ways to make a difference as a global citizen and as a multilingual learner. So I encourage you to act in your local community in some way that makes sense to you. So those are my 5 tips about acting locally, making sure that you're teaching diverse perspectives, identities, growing your awareness, so working on yourself, your own growth, check your information sources, understand where you're getting your information from, maybe dig into the authors or the biases that might be present. Number 4, engage in that conversation, agreeing, disagreeing, having the discourse to grow your understanding. And number 5, making a difference in your local community. So jump into the comments and let me know which of the 5 tips to act locally will you focus on first? When you think about yourself as a global citizen, which of these areas do you think you can focus on? Maybe you'll take some action on number 3. Let me know in the comments. Number 3 is one that is really important to me, especially in the age of social media where people post and repost information all over the place. It's something that I'm constantly checking to make sure that the information I'm consuming is high quality from reputable sources. I teach my students to agree, disagree, and refuse to answer politely. Oh, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it sounds like you already engage your students in conversation. That's a great area to start with. Karima's going to do all of them. Sounds great. For me, engaging in conversation with students starts with English learners with giving them the sentence frames that they need to engage in conversation. So it might mean first teaching your students how to agree with somebody or how to disagree. Teaching them how to agree or disagree politely is, I think, a piece of that. Another tip that I've been thinking about for myself is this grow your awareness tip. For me, I love to read. I'm always looking for books to read, and I'm a reader who likes to engage in reading about education because I'm a teacher by trade. I like reading about education. So, reading different perspectives is a way for me to grow my awareness as an educator. When I'm not reading, I end up stuck more stagnant, not learning as much because I'm not engaging in growth. So that might be a place where you focus your work as well in growing your awareness as an educator, doing some reading, doing some self reflection. Okay. So as you're thinking about which of these tips you'll engage with, I'm going to encourage you again for that number 5, that as teachers and educators, you are making a difference. You're part of this global community of global citizens. And I'm excited to be in this community with you. I see Nadia says, I am always looking for getting more engaged in improving my teaching techniques. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a way that you're engaging in the community as well. Yolanda says, I would like to grow awareness and work in creating an inspiring learning environment that promotes community connection, appreciation for the cultural aspects of learning. What a beautiful reflection. Thank you for sharing. I see, Yolanda, in your response, some of those values as well. Community, connection, appreciation. Those are core values that align with our community as multilingual learners and global citizens. All of them are linked in order to make a difference. Absolutely. When we do all of these things, when we teach diversity, we work on our own awareness, checking our information sources, and engaging in conversation, all of those things make a difference in our local community. That's absolutely how we make a difference. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for sharing all your ideas. Well, I'm so glad that we got to talk a bit about this today, this global citizen idea. Next month, we'll be back together with another webinar on a different topic on Thursday, November 17th at 2 p.m. Lima. But tomorrow we have the post-webinar discussion. I would love to talk more with you all about this idea of global citizenship and how you're perceiving your role in the global community of English learners and multilingual people. So if you're able tomorrow, Friday, the 21st of October at 2 p.m. Lima time, you can join the post-webinar discussion. There will be a Zoom link posted in the Facebook feed shortly after this webinar. We can join together and talk together. It'll be me and you, and hopefully a few others in our Zoom space to collaborate on this topic a bit more. Perhaps we can engage in some meaningful conversation and work on that tip number number 4 together tomorrow. So I hope to see you there, and if not, on November 17th at the next webinar, I will see you there. Thank you so much for joining. Take care, everybody.